Okay, so here is my video presentation of my simulator progress. So as you can see, I did the IPv4 address types and classes. I did pretty well in that. That lab made a lot of sense to me. Um, it was easy to find the information that I needed to answer the questions, and I felt like it was a good process for me to do. Then I did identifying troubleshooting commands. That one was a little bit more of a struggle. I think this lab took me probably almost an hour to Google all of the commands and try to then match what I had for answers on Google with the actual answers in the lab. Then I did types of network threats and attacks. This was fairly easy for me. I work in a computer environment anyway, and I'm quite familiar with most of these threats and attacks. Then I did security appliance terminology and methods. As you can see, that one was a little bit trickier for me. I struggled to find some of the answers, and it's obvious in my grades. Then I did the drag and drop section. I think I did pretty well here. I did the Cat5 wiring problems. It was easy for me to figure out each thing and what it was without really a whole lot of assistance. Then I did network topologies. Again, that felt fairly common sense to me, so I was able to do fairly well on that one as well. Then I did matching command output to commands. Again, this one was a little tricky for me. I struggled to sort of understand what each command did and find out the information that I needed to answer the questions appropriately. So that one was a little bit harder. Then I did the create a straight cable and test it. That was very easy for me, but again, I'm pretty good at following directions, and all of the figures were clear and easy to understand. The thing I struggled with a little bit on almost all of them was actually answering the questions and trying to think about the information. So that was a little bit tricky. Then I did the create a crossover cable. Again, I did fairly well on that. I, again, struggled to answer some of the questions because I struggled to actually come up with the process. I figured that I could actually follow the figure pretty well and create the cable, but I struggled to actually then apply the information that I used from that. The last part was the simulations. I struggled a lot in this department. I'm not sure I understood things. The first one I did was the verify a data link connection from a computer to a network. That one I think I did okay. I did better definitely on the ones where I had to go into the Windows control panels and figure out information from there. I work with that information a little bit more commonly in my day-to-day life, so it felt a little bit more familiar to me, and I could actually sort of answer the questions and understand what I was talking about. Then I did the configuring a client network adapter with the IPv4. Again, I did not have any troubles with that one, but I did have a little struggle with trying to think about the application of the information that we were actually using. Then I did using ipconfig to discover the network settings. Again, I'm good at following directions and pictures, and so I was able to answer these questions fairly easily. I struggled on a few of them. Actually, when I got down to the bottom of the IP configs, I really did struggle to apply that information. That seemed to be a fairly common theme in this area of the simulator. Then I did the using ping to troubleshoot the connectivity. Again, I was able to execute all of the commands appropriately, but again, I struggled to answer some of the questions based on the information that we had used to actually ping things. Then I used the ARP to discover a MAC address. Again, no problem with the configurations. I still struggled with some of the Linux commands that I couldn't quite figure out how to answer the questions appropriately. Then I did using ipconfig, the ping, and the ARP and traceroute together to troubleshoot the connectivity. Again, didn't have any problems performing all the steps of the site, but I did struggle to answer the questions. Then I did the manually configuring wireless signals on a small home office computer. This one was definitely easier for me, again, because it was something I was familiar with a wireless router, and I understand that situation. I've set one up in my home, and I understand how that all works together. Then I did configuring small home office router, doing the network user security settings. Again, I was able to follow the steps for doing the lab, but I did struggle again with the answers. Then I did the troubleshooting practice, which we talked about because I was not able to get it to complete, even though I completed it many times. I don't know why I couldn't do that. This one I struggled with until I had one of the IT guys that I work with come down and look it over with me and explain to me the process. Hearing it from him made a lot more sense to me than actually just doing the lab. Some of their language I felt was a little complex for the learning area that I am familiar with. So it was helpful to have somebody sort of explain it to me in plain English. Then I did configuring the static host name resolution on a workstation. This one took me a little bit longer. I think I understood the simulation state, but I think I issued a few incorrect commands and had to back myself out to try to remember to get to back to a starting point where I could then go forward again. Then I did using the NSLOOKUP for the DNS troubleshooting. Again, I had no problem doing the configurations. I was able to issue all the commands I needed, and that was a pretty easy one for me. Then I did the DNS troubleshooting simulation. Oh, this might be the actual one where I had a problem completing it. This one also, I had help from the IT person at my office, and once he explained it to me, it made a whole lot of sense, and I was actually able to answer the questions on my own. So that was helpful. Then I did configure an IP address on a switch. This was a tough one for me. Again, I was able to configure the devices in the way that I needed to, but I struggled to answer the questions again. Then I did configuring an Ethernet interface on a router. Same as before, I was easily able to configure everything and do the commands. You can see I had a few extra commands there. And I was able to answer the questions from the activity. Then I did using traceroute to troubleshoot connectivity. Again, this one went pretty quickly. I think I actually understood, but again, I didn't understand the answer. And even reading over the correct answer, I still am not sure 100% that I actually understand the answer. So that was a little frustrating because I feel like I'm fairly capable with computers, but some of this was beyond where I could actually understand. And I struggled because I could not find all the information that I needed, and it took a very long time for me to find it, even on the times that I actually could. Then I did creating network users on a domain controller. Again, because this was in the Windows environment, this was easier for me to figure out and to answer the questions. It was much more familiar to me. The last one I did was configuring a VPN client. This one, I have a VPN that I connect to at my office. So again, this was familiar, and so I didn't have any issues doing that one at all. Overall, I felt like this was all a little bit over my head, and I struggled to find answers that I needed. It took me a really long time to find the answers, and I sort of felt like I wasn't prepared enough to do all these exercises in a fashion that meant I was actually understanding them and learning them. So I was a little frustrated about this. But overall, I did like some of the exercises, especially I liked that the directions were very clear and I could easily follow the directions. I just struggled to apply the information from the actual configuration. So I wish that I had learned a little bit more. I wish it was a little bit simpler for me to understand so that I could have actually answered the questions and really comprehended what I was actually doing. That's it.